Sauwet suament panatir.
Sauwet suament panatir.
Aoud ma.
Aoud ma.
Keti pa heru.
Keti pa heru.
The translation is thus.
Give yourself to God daily. Keep yourself for God daily. And may tomorrow be as today.
We give homage to the Creator, who is like our Father, and who is like our Mother, who is everything that we can perceive, and everything that we cannot perceive, who is everything, yet is no thing, who comes to us in the form of the Neteru Ra, who is the light of the heavens, light of the inner planes, as well as the light of our lives, who shines the light for us on the path of Maati, which is the path of truth, justice, righteousness, and harmonious balance, who comes to us in the form of the light of vitality, giving us the strength and the endurance to live and act upon that which we know to be true. Homage to you, the one who shines in and through us as a beacon of light for those who are blind to the facts of their place, their position, and their responsibilities in the divine scheme of things. May we be Ma'akiru, true of thought, word, and deed, to our highest reality, and in our moments of crisis and the dark nights of the soul, when it appears that everyone and everything else has let us down. So it is, and so shall it be. Amen. Maat.
Amen. Maat.
Ma'akiru. 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 Let me see. You do it. It's been a long time since I've done it. Yanowe. All right, so I trust everyone's doing well. Never. Is everybody good?
Two.
I keep forgetting to mention every time I'm up here that I actually miss the roll call. You remember the roll call? You know, it's always a pleasure to speak to the people in the room, but with the quarantine and the world crisis allowed us to be more intimate with people that we don't actually know or we haven't known or met face to face. And you know, I've grown fond to seeing the names scroll across the screen, to know that we're bigger than this room, that we're at now, international and actually worldwide. You know, so that's a powerful thing. Any of y'all remember some of the names they used to scroll? I know Cortia is one of the consistent people. I know Jason Holmes, his name used to come up one of the first names. I don't know if y'all remember, but somehow we have to find a way to reincorporate that in. Remember the righteous and respectful chat. So for those people out there online that know that I'm talking to you, put your name in the chat in all caps and let you know that we still recognize you and we ain't forgot about you. So with that being said, Judy done walked out. I wanted to give him this props, so. You see y'all online, there's no respect. Cats is walking out, but so I'm speaking to a half-empty room. No, I'm just kidding. Now I wanted to give you props for your excellent communion, very thought-provoking and things like that. I as well as Hemet, very powerful message that she did last week about the power of the imagination, about how sometimes there's a thin line between your mind and your environment, and sometimes your environment, or basically your personal experience of life, has stunted your imagination, and some people can't perceive certain realities that they're actually being taught. So I'm going to cover some of that in my version of that also. And you know, just when I take a step back, sometimes I look at Hemet and I look at Wild Majority Ryan. I take pride that I have very smart and wise people around me. I make it my business to have smart and wise people around me. Part of my success, my personal success, and the success of the temple is because I keep smart and wise people around me. And I try to stay clear of broke or broken people. That may sound prejudiced, you know, because we come from, you know, nationalistic backgrounds when we talk about taking care of the people. And it's not a judgment on people that's broke or broken. So let us put it in context, because in this tradition it tells us to assist the broke or the broken or the misfortunate. So just to put it in context, we go to the who see it first to address the first part of what I said to my people about smart and powerful people around you. Page 51, I think it's the book of Ani. It's the last part of paragraph 3. It says, truly great is a great person when his men and women of stature are great. Strong is the Nasib who has counselors, and wealthy is the one who is rich in persons of stature. That encapsulates what I just said about how I feel about my sister. So now to address not keeping broke or broken people around me, or you also keep broke or broken people around yourself. But I said our tradition charges us to take care of those who are experiencing misfortune. So we don't look down our nose. So we'll go to page 33. And it's the book of Kemmunion, paragraph 4, the last paragraph of paragraph 4. It says, helmsman, do not let your ship go astray. Life giver, do not let the people die. Provider, do not let the people perish from need. Shade, do not let the people become dry in the sun. Protector, do not let the crocodile seize the people and drag them away. It means keeping people out of danger. So you see, we have a charge not to distance ourselves from people, but we have a charge to constantly interact with those sometimes less fortunate than ourselves. So to address it again, just a supportive quote, we'll go to page 47. Which is the book of Ptah. The top of the page. Paragraph 17, that's 17 in Roman numerals, right?
Sure.
All right. Say, if you have grown great after having lived a lowly condition and have gained wealth after having been poor in your town in the past, forget not how it was with you in former times. Because we all know that experience, especially being black in America. It's rare that some of us escape that experience. And everybody didn't grow up like Nick Cannon. And no disrespect to him, that's just his experience. That's just not the common black person's experience in America. Trust not your wealth which came to you as a gift of nectar, a gift of the divine, and put not behind you another who is your equal and to whom the same has happened. So, you know, in Christianity, we did learn some things from Christianity. It's not all BS. There's some wisdom there. They said there's the letter and then there's the spirit of the letter, right? So in reading that paragraph, what would you say is the spirit that's being communicated in that paragraph?
You better be thankful for where you came from.
Better be thankful.
Don't forget where you came from.
Don't forget where you came from. Would you say that encapsulates compassion?
True.
Yeah, so we constantly have to be compassionate no matter how good we feel about ourselves or how powerful we're on our path. We can't forget where we came from. So even if you didn't come from those circumstances, you still ain't where you're supposed to be in the divine scheme of things. You got ancestors, and there's a whole hierarchy of other beings, which you are the lowest of the low. Right? There's always another level. So with that being said, I said I keep wise and smart people around because this is about reciprocation. So these wise people around me contribute wisdom to me, which helps me get stronger into where I need to go in life. Because you can only offer what you are or where you're at. So if you're keeping broke or broken people around you, they can only compensate that. That's where they're at. So if they're just in a constant position of receiving, you're giving, you're leaking out, and there's nothing for them to really reciprocate until they get their thing together, because we're still charged to help those people out. What I'm saying is you're not charged to have those people as part of your personal circle. You can help people without them being your personal circle. Because this thing ultimately is about energy. It's about energy exchange. So all of us are familiar, we're going on different diets. If you have physical goals, there's certain food that you cannot intake There's certain food that you cannot have in your body because it affects your metabolism a certain way. So if we're talking about energy, it's just certain people you cannot have in your energetic field. They're just not beneficial. So you can still help them, but they can't stay close to you like that. Just like if you're fasting or if you're trying to achieve certain dietary goals, you have to stay away from certain food. You don't even need it in your environment because you'll be tempted. So I needed to put that in perspective because there's just a lot of immaturity that goes on in our community. I like to push the envelope when it comes to topics here at Communion, and that's respect to everyone else out there in social media teaching what it is that they teach. But I like to push the envelope. I like to scratch below the surface because we have a lot of powerful concepts in this legacy, and a lot of people address. They still go on the surface. I like to get into what does it mean or what should it mean for us, right? That's the only thing that's important right now. What should it mean for us? So in that light, I'll name today's lecture, Maat and Maturity is What Matters. Maat and Maturity is what matters. Can we say that together? Maat and Maturity is what matters. So now, the other day, I think it was Friday night, the Kerhead and I were in the studio, we were making music. And yes, we do that. Just so a shameless plug, we got some new stuff coming in the new year. We rocked out with several projects with a new ambiance, new radiance in the Wet Repet CD, so we got a new renaissance coming. Because we have the Hessies and we had a new radiance. If you see the trajectory I was going on, remember our whole concept is from the ancient to the living legacy. So I'm working up to a place to, it's like, okay, we got the Hesse, we got the sacred stuff, which is equivalent to our gospel music, and then it gets into like, well, what is the music we're supposed to listen to sound like now, without it being overly religious? I was inspired by what him had said, when we were at the Wet Repet cookout, we had the new Radiance playing in the background. Now, I don't know if y'all know, it was playing, that one CD was playing all day for 4 hours. And she had said some statement, she was like, but it felt right. It's like, this is the type of music Kemites are supposed to listen to. So we gotta increase that catalog. Good vibing music with the proper message, but still sounding relevant and in tune with our experience. I'm trying to create the soundtrack of our movement. Because music is very important for us, and we can't deny that, because a lot of times we find ourselves slipping into unwholesome music because our people don't make the type of music we're supposed to make. And some of that unwholesome music is hot. It is what it is, There's levels to the game, but we got to represent some of those other levels too. We got to balance the field, because Maat and maturity is what matters, right? So we were in there making music, and we had a conversation, and I brought up, I said, just the day before, I said, now they got another COVID strand. It's called Omicron.
Yes.
And we was just like, man, we were just shaking our head like, we can't get a break. And her head was like, yo, this whole world, this life of ours is very surreal. It's like we're living a science fiction movie. And I said, now, I contemplated on, I said, it's predictive programming. Go way back to the Twilight Zone. They was always playing on our worst fears and stuff, and they like, what happened? What if this? What if that? So it's all predictive programming in the form of entertainment for the past 30 years. We're living in a time where we've seen all this stuff in movies, and we're like, oh, that ain't gonna happen. And I know all the Bible thumpers like, see, the Revelations. Signs of the time. And I would say that's predictive programming also. So the people who made those, remember, we all came up in Judeo-Christian religion. So the people that made those shows came up in the same religion. So they took that, mixed it with some sci-fi novels, and we got predictive programming. I'm saying there was no truth to any of it. I'm saying that's the power of the imagination. Because in our tradition, it teaches when the mind exclusively absorbs a concept, it becomes an actual state. So with self-fulfilling prophecy, how could it not happen if that's all we've been feeding ourselves with all of this time? So I said, I'm cool with it. I'm okay. I'm not cool with the misfortune of others. I'm not cool with the misfortune of anybody in this room. I'm saying that the crises of the world created circumstances that successfully reinvigorated and awakened my warrior and my sage. What is that supposed to look like? What type of tonics you taking to be on it like that? Or are you wearing the colors of Heru? Or are you doing altar work? No, no, no. And what I'm saying is I made up a mental resolve in my mind to stand on principle. And those things, wearing the colors, what else I say? The tonics, the health tonics, and altar work, all of that's supportive. But that wasn't my first go-to. It was me making up my mind to stand on principle. Standing on principle is evocative. It's like standing your ground. What does that mean when somebody says stand your ground? That word stand your ground is actually traumatized us. Mm-hmm. What did we associate stand your ground with these days? Trayvon Martin. Stand your ground. That evokes a warrior energy. That person felt he had to stand his ground, he had the right to carry. He thought he was being a warrior in his community. I'm saying I'm standing on principle. So now, the word stand in Meroneta is aha. Can y'all say that? Aha. Aha means to stand. Aha means to strike. Ahati means striker. Akuti is a warrior. So we're talking about a warrior in the word stand. So I didn't say stand the ground. I said stand on principle. In our tradition, the principle or power of principle or the power / principle is netter. What is the glyph for netter? Flag or?
Facts.
Is it facts?
No, axe.
Yeah, that's your name, facts on any blood. At the axe. Now, what thought comes to mind with the flag?
Standing.
Standing. Planting.
Action.
Action.
That's what I think when I say that.
Sovereignty, territory. What about the actual flag, though?
Movement.
Subtlety. The flag detects the wind. So the flag implicates spirit, something subtle. So you have a flag with the temple, and according metaphysically, when you see that wind blowing, it's activating the divine principle. So remember the principle of so-called magic. If you draw something or if you write out something, that's called the spell. That's magic. So if you have the netter and the color of the netter and the image of the netter on the flag and the wind blowing, it's activating the presence of that netter at that location. But that's neither here nor there. These days, I'm inclined to believe it's the axe. Because I've been to the Metropolitan Museum and I've seen the axe, and the axe looks exactly like the glyph. The axe is a stick and it's wrapped with either piece of stone or metal, and it's looking just like the glyph for netter. So, usually when it comes to dealing with God or the divine, we say that's the sage. Those are priestly matters. Now that changes the whole game if netter is the axe, which is associated with warriors and associated with hunting. So that means there's a reconciliation of the sage and the warrior with the axe. So we have to be warriors as well as sages. So I'm saying this whole thing reinvigorated my warrior and the sage to reaffirm what I believe, reaffirm what I know. And we have to be hunters of the truth. We can't believe nothing these folks say. So now, Maat immaturity is what matters. So if we have to say, what is our religion about? We have to say our religion is about accountability. Through the lens or through the platform or the metaphor of responsibility. If you're not inclined to be disciplined, then the Kemetic tradition is not for you. I'll repeat, if you're not inclined to be disciplined, this Kemetic tradition is not for you. If you're not inclined to take responsibility for the whole of your life, whether good or bad, this tradition is not for you. I think I listened several times to Brother Jabari. He said something about a Christian sister that he met, and she said, I can't be Kemetic. And he said, why? And she said, because it's too hard. You know why? Because they got to get into heaven free pass through Jesus.
Yep, true.
They ain't even got to believe in him. They just believing in his name is good enough. So they don't even encourage as much to take responsibility. They don't really encourage to be a better person, because at the end of the day, none of that matters, because all you got to do is believe in Jesus and you get in. Now, it's different with us here, because we just spoke about Neter, the subtlety and the power of Neter. And Neter is the ancestor or the root to the word nature. So nature is always going to be our primary go-to when we're looking for examples of how we should be and how we move in life. So in nature, nothing in nature tells you ever get a pass. I think Kara's one had some rhyme. I don't know the whole rhyme, but all I remember is the last part of the rhyme. He said, nature rules by kicking ASF. And isn't that true? When it's time to pay the piper, nature don't care about nothing. No prayers, none of that. So we have to talk about accountability as our tradition through the lens of responsibility that bears two children called consequence. It's like you just named one. The two consequences is good consequences and bad consequences. But that comes through how well you're able to hold responsibility as well as consequences. So the order of the day now is not history, it's not nationality, it's consequences. Consequences is about natural law, being in tune with natural law. So when you do good unconsciously, how many people believe they're inherently good? How many people believe that you're constantly doing good even when you're not conscious of doing good? But there is a possibility you could be doing bad unconsciously also, right? So when you have an accumulation of unconscious good, that manifests in your life as so-called good luck. When you have an accumulation of unconscious bad, that manifests in your life as bad luck. But that's all just divine law, unrecognized. There is no good luck, there is no bad luck. There's just energy that's always happening, whether you're conscious of it or not. That's why I said if you're not serious about self-accountability and responsibility and self-awareness, don't get into spirituality. Even if it's looking like you're getting what you want. Because you're going to get some things you don't want also. That doesn't make sense. Why would I get something that I don't want? Because we have different levels of the conscious mind, subconscious, super, all of that. So if you're not extremely self-aware and knowing what you're putting out, you're going to get everything that comes to you, even the stuff you don't recognize. You're like, yo, what the heck is this? So nature teaches us about consequences. So when it comes to this jab, there's consequences on getting the jab, and there's consequences on not getting the jab. If you look at the new research there, I think everybody's up with the new research. I teach it, I study it every day. So they're saying now, if you get that jab, you're not protected from the virus, right?
Exactly.
Right.
If you get that jab, you hold the same viral load as the unvaccinated, correct?
Exactly.
If you get that jab, you can still transmit that disease, right? So there's no real difference between the vaccine, like what the heck is going on? I'm not gonna get into that right now, because I did like 3 communions of it. I'm just using it as an example. And they saying that it lessens the severity of disease if you get that, right? Just know that that vaccine you took is for the old one from 2 years ago. It got nothing to do with the Delta thing that we were supposed to be concerned with.
Or Omicron.
Now Omicron, they say Omicron is 500 times more transmissible than the Delta. That means everybody getting that fucking thing. You know why? It's because of the vaccinations. The vaccinations force the virus to evolve. It's just a natural order of things. But it doesn't mean it's gonna be as strong. The natural order of things, every time it mutates, it gets weaker. But they're pushing the fear philosophy on you. So now they're up to 4 jabs. Now they got the Omicron. We about to be taking stuff like every month. But my point is consequence. What is the consequence? So there's a whole bunch of conspiracy theories, and I ain't even gonna call them conspiracy theories because we've seen a whole lot of stuff come true. My point is, I hope I'm wrong about all the stuff that came across my desk about it. I don't want to be right. I take no pride in being right because it's people I love took that, felt like they had to take it. And we're going to be there, whatever the consequence is. But what I'm saying is there appears to be no immediate consequence, but we don't know down the line. This is straight experimental that they forced or enforced on people. That's the thing. So we're talking about consequences. So those who didn't take the jab, there's consequences for that. What are the consequences? Lose your job, got a test, so can't go on vacation, can't leave the country.
Can't go to restaurants.
Yeah, I got a whole bunch to say about that. So the consequence is that you're oppressed by the vaccinated, which is unfair. That ain't even a natural order thing. Like that's human imposing human. It's a new type of prejudice going on. So we're like, damn, we was already messed up being black. Now black and unvaccinated. Can't catch it. Black and unvaccinated. Yeah. You put that on the t-shirt.
What's next, right?
So the point is there appears to be no immediate damage, but we don't know the long term. And we can only pray that there is no damage. But what do we learn from nature? And this, I don't fear many things, but this is one of the things I fear. So everybody keeps saying trust the science, trust the technology, but every time I look and we really look at science and technology, it's always harming us in the long run. There's always so-called prophets in the wild warning us about each new so-called advance in technology that we don't listen. Remember, at the turn of the century, there was prophets of the wild called natural hygienists telling us, don't mess with that junk food. Don't mess with the chemicals in it. Cancer was nearly non-existent 50 years ago. Now cancer is almost, cancer done replaced AIDS. Remember we were scared of AIDS and nobody said AIDS is old school. AIDS is like a cold compared to cancer now. And now they trying to get us scared of this COVID thing. Like, nah, COVID don't got nothing on the cancer. So you had prophets warning you about not messing with the chemicals in the food. Did we listen? No, because it was convenient at the time. It tasted good at the time because people were tired of farming and agriculture. Oh, I'm tired of working out on the fields and such and such. Most of the black folks moved up here because we was tired of the fields. We were just done with that, anything that reminded us of slavery. But that was a skill set, agriculture. So we left money on the table. So we came up here to work in a different type of slave plantation, which was the factory. That was the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. So now here we are, 50 years from now. They told us about junk food. Now you have chronic effects of not following nature. What else? Remember microwaves. So microwaves are very convenient. And the people was warning us that they don't mess with that microwave stuff, it's gonna cause cancer. And it's proven to have caused cancer, but did they take the microwaves off the market? And if we're honest with ourselves, didn't it make the food taste nasty? You're like, what the heck? It changes the molecular structure of it, you know? So that causes cancer. Now, what about the car? Turn of the century. They were like, ain't you tired of the horse and buggy thing? Ain't you tired of cleaning up crap and feeding that animal? And they said, but what about the carbon transmission? What about the ozone? Don't worry, did we listen? No, we wanted convenience. We wanted to move fast. We didn't want to clean up the crap. We didn't want to feed the animal. So now we damn near at $5 a gallon. You got to feed the animal again. And the ozone is erupted. Now cancer is even more increased. It's affecting us. It's already getting rid of the white folks. People with less melanin was affecting them, but it's only so much we can take. We're not invulnerable. It's only so much we can take, so we haven't been listening to nature. So now the weather is acting up. Now the floods is hitting us up here like it was in New Orleans. Whose fault is that? That's our fault. We didn't stop. We trusted the science, and they keep messing with the order of things. Like Harris once said, nature rules by kicking. So now nature comes, justice is blind. That's why you see in the court system, she got the blindfold on, because when nature comes, she don't care about your long face, she don't care about your crying, or what about my children? Be like, hey. That's why in the Bible said the sins upon the father shall affect the generations up into the seventh generation. So that stuff 50 years ago when nobody's listening to the prophets of the wild about no junk food, watch the technology, now we got to pay for it. If you believe in reincarnation, then that was you making the decisions anyway. So the world crisis has taught us to prioritize what is important, and what important is what works for you. Right? What else is there to talk about nowadays but what's working for you? No more history in the forefront. No more nationality in the forefront. Why do I say that? There's no disrespect to that. That's supposed to be everybody's favorite pastime anyway. History, reading, supposed to be your favorite pastime as a conscious person. And what the heck is going on if we don't know who we are by now? We would say we was the original man and the original people, and that's who we are. Why do we got to keep talking about that as the forefront of the conversation? Nationality is not the order of the day, not the nationality that they talk about or the board is talking about, that paperwork stuff, and no disrespect to them. But it's a roster quote that said, I will not be a slave to a promise written in ink. So therefore, you cannot be freed by a promise written in ink either. You make up your mind and stand on your principle, even if it calls for you having to go to war and tearing some stuff up. So nationality has nothing to do with race. Nationality is not even something about your skin. Nationality is your culture, your tradition, and your language. We know this already, right? That's our language. The Kemmunion culture is our culture. Why we got to keep saying this like it's new? What we do is the completion of history. Would you agree? What we do is the completion of history. We're making our contribution to history. So 50 years from now, they're going to be studying us like we were studying the people thousands of years ago. So what we do and how we dress, our swag, our movement, our music, how we talk is the completion of history. What we do is the personification of nationality. Right? So it's no longer about the talk, it's all about the walk. So in respect to the history, our conversation is now, what is it that you do? Why is it that you do it? And how can you do it to yield the best results? Again, what is it that we do? Why do we do it? And how can we do it in a way that yields the best results? That's all our conversation is going to be about from now on. We can't lead with just history. We can't just lead with nationality. It's now redundant. It's 2021. We got the internet and everything. Everything you wanted to know is out there. You still got to sift through it to see what's true and what's not true, because there's a lot of half-truths out there. But the truth is, the black man and woman is the original people, and that's all you need to know at the end of the day. Everybody ain't got to be Kemetic, everybody ain't got to be Yoruba, everybody ain't got to be Moorish, everybody ain't got to be Israelites, because all of those people saying the original people is the black people anyway, so we good. What's there to talk about? So in respect to our scholars, because we have a lot of people that stand on a Kemetic teaching, though a lot of those scholars give themselves Kemetic names, and their whole purpose is to defend our ancestors against the teachings of white supremacy. So, white folks, they ain't said it in a while, but they imply it all the time that we dumb as hell. So we got these scholars, and they've dedicated themselves by using Kemet as the focal point to prove that our ancestors, or that we come from a powerful, regal, royal ancestry, right? These cats be having Kemetic names, and we be thinking they down. And so when it's time to prove something to white folks and white supremacy, those are our ancestors. But yet, we carry the honk and We do things that the Kemetic people talk about, and all of a sudden they ain't our ancestors, right? So the problem is people don't like being held to standards. So let us participate in some of that nonsense that they say about us, and they'll be, I thought you were supposed to be about Maat. You spoke about my mother. That's not Maat. But they can do anything they want to do. People with Kemetic names, talking about Kemetic culture, don't want to be held to the Kemetic standard. So we're seeing that a lot of our people have no intention whatsoever of advancing the culture. And that's okay, I'm not going to spend time on them, but I appreciate their contribution. You see, Maat and maturity is what matters. Because all of those brothers and sisters and elders and ancestors have some incredible work that we can pull from to enrich what it is that we do. That's what it's about. Enriching what, sorry about that. I say thank you to them for their contribution. Because it's only going to make us better. Because we have creativity here. We're not stuck. They hit a wall. They're stuck. They don't know what to do. So they keep regurgitating what they say. We put the teachings in action. And we have the gall, the intestines to be not afraid to fail. Because we talk the big game about African spirituality, but people are scared to actually do it because what if it don't work? And then I would be embarrassed. So they talk it to a point, but they won't walk it. So history, we study history to know what worked for our ancestors, why it worked, and how long that it worked for. And then we study to find out what made it stop working. Was it the leadership? Some people talk about, I got all the answers, but then they ain't following no leadership. So was it the leadership of why Kemet fell down? Or was it chaos, a natural chaos that came from the transition from one divine cycle to the next cycle? Or was it negative karma from spiritual violation? Or was it internal disorder or internal disorganization? And I would say it's a combination of all of those. Not because they worship the wrong God, because that's how some people, the Israelites, the Kemmunion went down because they worshiping all them idols and them animal-headed things. Not because we didn't worship the God of Israel, not because we didn't worship Allah. Y'all are real people, right? Y'all do real things, correct? Raise your hand if you're interested in your quality of life. Keep your hand up if you think you're interested in prospering in life. Keep your hand up if you're concerned about your health. Okay, and said he got both hands. And the Holy Ghost back there. All right. What we just did is we personified our concern with Ankh Uja Sened. We got that concept from our ancestors. I asked y'all real people, those are real concerns, right? My life, my quality of my life. I want to prosper and I want to make sure I'm healthy. Our ancestors were the same way. We got where we're at right now in this position is we still ain't ready for the war. That's why cats had to get the jab. We wasn't ready, and I'm not judging any of it, like, yo, you had to do what you got to do, but we was not ready. Which I agree collectively as a people, we're not ready. So that's the answer to what happened to our ancestors. They were always concerned about their life, prosperity, and their health. So just like we weren't or not ready for the challenges of our day and time, so something happened one way or another that they was not ready for the challenges of their day and time. That's how things happen. Remember, those are real people. It's cool to venerate our ancestors, but they were not perfect. Just like you were not perfect, just like I'm up here in front of you now, I am not perfect. And I'm saying if we judged our ancestors like how we judge ourselves, we couldn't even be Kemetic. If you found out how wrong they were about certain things, how else are we supposed to learn and correct if they didn't make some of the mistakes? But when we read the Husi and all the text, that's not the writings of perfect people. It's telling you to take care of the poor. How is cats getting poor? Remember that the way some cats teach that everybody was kings or queens. So clearly everything wasn't doing right. That's why we say Ma'at and maturity is what matters. So now we have the phenomenon. Y'all good?
Two.
We need to open the windows.
Just a little bit.
Okay.
Listen here.
Okay. See, I'm in tune with the people. I care for you all. I'm compassionate shepherd. So we have the phenomenon of initiation. And that's the new novelty nowadays. Initiation. So we have to check ourselves with the Western way of doing things. Everybody's already always on to the next level about everything. So after high school, you go to college, you get the BA or the BS degree, right? So she was on it, she got it, she beat me to the punch. The BA, the BS, what's after that? The Masters, then what else? PhD? That's it, right? And then there's something else after that? Graduate school, right? Postdoctorate. So there's always this other level. So sometimes you don't give yourself enough time to marinate on what you have. Because in this society, you ain't even really marinating on the information you've been exposed to. You chasing a dollar because there's a dollar sign associated to that next level. So people have that idea coming through initiation. So you get initiated and they're like, and then what? And then what is you talk shop. After you become initiation, you talk shop and then you have to determine what is your pedigree. We need to know, like, what have you learned? Do you know how to use it? Do you really know? Because remember, initiation means to begin. Initiation means to get permission to begin because some of us are keepers of tradition. So we're giving you permission to have access to this information. So some of the people online, not our people per se, but just the way social media is going now, they act like you're supposed to just give everything out for free. Because a lot of those people are too lazy to go through the process to be where they're supposed to be, to get what they're supposed to get, so they can criticize, condemn, and complain about people like myself and ourselves for not just giving stuff free. It don't work like that. There's levels to this shift.
That's right.
Remember, responsibility. You will only be given according to your level of responsibility and accountability. I repeat, you will only be given according to your level of responsibility and accountability. And that's for your own good. I don't know about y'all, but I know too many people over the years that's gone crazy from having access to too much information. Some people literally gone crazy for having access to information that they didn't qualify for. Therefore, made them blow a fuse that they cannot return from. When I look at ATR, African traditional religion, all of the traditions are beautiful, but it's getting lost in sorcery and magic because that's the draw of the people. They're not coming for identity. They're not coming for family. They're not coming to nation build. They want power. So I'm like, what do you want to do with the power? And especially amongst the men, when I see the men, they want power to manipulate women. I don't know what the women want, but I know too many brothers that got it and they use it to abuse and to manipulate the power of women. So they don't gave the tradition a bad name because too many people who were given power and they haven't been tested, tried, and qualified in character. Because now you got all these fast food versions of initiation where you could go through in a year. And that's no disrespect to the ones that do it correctly in a year according to the dictates of their tradition. But we are living in a fast food society. In Kemmunion, they said it was a 30-year initiation. Nobody up for that. They were like, yeah. So that's why everybody like, oh, I was able to graduate school in 2 years, but I ain't got 30 years. That's why our numbers don't grow like the rest of the tradition, because it's not an assembly line. I had an interesting experience I want to share. Somebody, I don't know the state of their spirit and why they sent it to me. They sent me a picture of us. And him and myself was looking spent in that picture. So remember, in all things in life, you got to understand the context and content. before you believe anything anyone says. Always investigate the content and the context. That picture was from like 1 o'clock at night. It was from the summer, right the night before Wet Room Pet. Remember we was here late? So me and him had just like, and y'all like, so it was said your people look good, but you don't look well. You don't look at peace. You're not happy. You look like you're suffering. You look like you might even have spiritual attack. You might be under spiritual attack. I'm just like, damn, I look that bad? I try to tell people I'm good enough even on a bad day. They telling me I'm cursed. I'm like, damn. What's frustrating about that is, do you find it frustrating when you think people know you, then they don't know you, find out that they don't know you? So if you know anything about me, you would have to know something about my background. When I communicate with you, I try to get in your business, to know who you are, to know what I'm dealing with, to know what you have to go through, some of your struggles. Because we all complement one another. So my background, I come from hip hop. Back when men were men in the traditional sense. I don't know about what's going on with these cats now. No disrespect, but it is what it is. It's an interesting observation. I come from it where men were clearly men. So my influences in hip hop was Rakim, Big Daddy Kane, Cool G Rap. Now I'm gonna ask y'all a question. Y'all familiar with those people, right? I don't know about the younger people. Is it possible for you to find one picture with Rakim smiling?
Nobody smiling.
Nobody smiling. Ain't no joke. I used to let the mic smoke. So that's where I come from. Hype ass heart attack. Nobody smiling.
Yeah, straight up.
Cool G Rap, Big Daddy Can't have you picture.
It's hard, ain't it?
That's where I come from. The cat saying I look like I'm under spiritual attack because that's just where I come from. I could be straight smiling all 33 teeth and then come into a picture and be like, hey, yo, what's up? And how's the wife and the children? They kiss the baby for me and let's take a picture. Why is he looking like that? What's wrong with him? There's nothing wrong with me. That's just how we do it. 80s, you know. So, see, now you know that about me. So now, when you're taking a picture, you know what to interpret that is. Context and content. That's why we have to be careful when we taking these flicks. Because when we post it up, we leave it open for interpretation. And we know that from the tabloids. I could be in transition from over here to here. And my face, I could be like, yo. They take the picture. They'll be like, is this your kid? Is this your kid? And I'll be like, that's him, but why is it? All right, so I had to contemplate it more deeply and watch this. I have to look at this. Who is that? Narmer.
I'm gonna go chapter 3rd. Or
Hatshepsut, this is a queen. Remember the queen who ruled as king. So she's in the ritual regalia of the king. That's why she has the false beard. Zinga. And this brother, I don't know, but it's a tight picture. So am I looking at not at peace or suffering, or am I just in the tradition of kings and queens? None of them smile. So, not to say that, do y'all believe that none of them ever smile ever in their life? Just Marcus Garvey knew he was taking this picture. He could have been like, he said, y'all ever see? Oh man, I missed one. embodies royalty.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
That's right. Imperial Majesty.
So when I'm taking pictures, that's what I thought I was doing. At least that's what I thought I was doing. I'm told it's looking something else other way. So with that being said, when you see the kings and the queens, they're not there to convince you that they're happy or that they're at peace. What you see people is on their job. They're on their purpose. And the purpose of kingship and leadership is a serious thing. Right? So there is no test to test people's happiness. But there was a test to test health and strength that was called the SED Festival. Every 5 years, then the SED had to show and prove. Y'all see me do it one time on a retreat and stuff. And I would say my second SED Festival was surviving that crisis, that health crisis I had. I had to dig deep on that. So, we have Hetep. What is the symbol for Hetep?
Bread on the table.
Bread on the table, meaning you're going to get your share of your portion in life. Nowadays, we become so, what's the word? I guess ungrateful, picky. So you get your share, your piece of bread, and now we live in a time where people are criticizing bread. Is that white bread, bro? You know bread is acidic. Is it wheat bread? Wheat is acidic. You know, now you can't eat bread. Our ancestors had this thing to represent peace. Now it's acidic. So the point is, there is no such thing as happiness. There's moments of happiness, but not just happiness, period. Just when you just blissed out. Like, how are you gonna live your life if you just blissed out or orgasmic, you know? That, you know, you experience those things in tantra in certain states of meditation, but you gotta live your life. Life is a bunch of challenges, and those challenges is gonna challenge your idea of happiness. So I have enough things in my life where I experience my moments of happiness. Like I said, I do music that gives me happiness, but there's certain parts of the process that I hate. Like, I wasn't dealing with technology till I started producing, when I went from rapper to producer and rapper. Now I had to learn this computer stuff and it get on my damn nerves. Like, why ain't it doing what it's supposed to do? But then I produced a new ambiance, and I produced a new ratings, and produced a web and pet, and I'm getting very good reviews from it, and that made the process, it made it worthwhile. So just as a whole, I love the whole thing, even the parts that I didn't. Just understand that no person, place, or thing is responsible for your happiness. Again, no person, place, or thing is responsible for your happiness, because if it is, those things can be taken from you. So can your happiness be taken? These things you can experience moments of happiness, but that is not their job to give you happiness. Some people make massive mistakes because they're chasing this illusion of happiness. Some people leave careers. Remember, careers is something that you thought you loved doing, that you were supposed to do. So then when it is somehow maybe it got boring along the way, and maybe I made a great mistake, I gotta chase something else. Like, no, it's gonna be peaks and valleys on that path. And you're gonna have to sometimes learn to transition from so-called happiness to appreciation. Sometimes what keeps me motivated to do this is when we have first eye orientation, and we're speaking, we're interacting with the new people, and we say, what brings you here? And a lot of them say, communion. The communion experience was magical. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. And just see their eyes light up when they talk about it, what they experienced, the energy in the room. And it brought joy to my heart when Naeem got up here and he said he believed one day it's his destiny to be up here teaching. I'm like, whoa. And he ain't even initiated, and he believed this is going to be his destiny to be up here teaching. That those things motivate me. That like, okay, I'm doing something right. But sometimes, what they say, familiarity breeds contempt. And that's not the fault of communion. That's not the fault of a person. That's personal. So communion is never any less magical than it ever was. You just got used to it. Your tolerance, you built up a certain tolerance with certain frequency. So you're always looking for the next thing. But look at the new people, they come in and, oh, drums, oh, incense, and oh, wow, they just taking it all in. So sometimes you might have to find your happiness in helping other people achieve the happiness, So there's levels. So back to that judgment thing. Like everyone in this room knows each other at this point. But inside your head, you have the avatar of each person in this room. Listen to what I'm saying, we're gonna take this slow. Inside your head, you have the avatar of each person in this room, even me up here. You're like, that's Nasip, he's Nasip, he's about such and such, but you don't speak to me. Most of your interaction with each other is with that avatar in each other's head, in your own head, and that's imaginary. The problem comes is when you meet the real person and the real person contradicts your avatar. You be like, well, the shouldn't have said this because you're like, do you know me? Do you really have a conversation with me? Remember I said that's why it's necessary for you to have authentic conversations with people to know where they're coming from and what's their experience, because in your head you all got ideal versions, or we all have ideal versions of each other in our head. And I'm telling you, in live time, it's exhausting trying to contradict someone's avatar that they got in their head. So some people will look at you like you fake, and they got you all figured out when they were just too involved in their avatar in their head. Like, yo, it's me, bitch, speak to me. So some people would rather argue and cut off the avatar in their head, so when they come across the real deal, they ain't messing with you because they already had the conversation with the avatar in their head. And that's dangerous. So that's why I said Maat and maturity matters. And lastly, we're talking about the imagination. There's no such thing as a lack of imagination. It's just the wrong use of the imagination. You could not exist without imagination. All things in this world exist because of imagination, the good things as well as the bad things. So we are concerned with the wrong use of the imagination. And there's way more people that have the wrong use of imagination than the proper use of imagination. For instance, if you try to be optimistic, you'll probably run into 5 people, like you try to be optimistic and see the upside of things, and you have 5 people tell you 20 different things on why it's not possible.
Yes.
So they're using imagination too. So to you, they can't imagine, but for them, they can imagine 1,001 ways why you can't do it. You see, it's just the wrong use of imagination. Not that they lack imagination. Most people's thoughts and imagination and their so-called limitations are based on their experience. So sometimes certain people's rituals yield limited results because of the wrong use of the imagination. Some people, it's easy for them to indulge in negative or counterproductive thinking, or why something can't or won't work than the idea that it actually will work. Because once again, there's a thin line between your mind and your environment. So if your experience was a certain thing up to a point when somebody's saying anything is possible, this is possible, but if you have experiences where it shows that life is very limiting, it becomes difficult or challenging for you to believe anything outside of it, because now it's in your chemistry that it's not that. Does that make sense? So how can we blame someone for not having vision? So how can we go beyond the barriers of limiting thinking to liberate our thoughts? Number 1, deep study. People don't deep study no more. Because of technology, because of the science and things like the microphone and the things like lectures and stuff, we listen to lectures instead of actually studying. And the lectures are good, they can stimulate thought, but sometimes the lectures get you caught up into the speaker and not thinking deeply about the subject matter. So when you're studying on your own, your mind is racing a mile a minute because you're imagining things. You're reading and you're imagining. That's why it's necessary to study the Sesh Metal Netzer, how profound that language is. So our ancestors took sound vibrations and created pictures and created equivalent with pictures. So we got pictures, we got sound, and we got meaning. So we got both the right and left hemispheres of the brain. So part of stimulating the imagination, you need to read more novels as opposed to watching TV and movies. In contrast, I ain't gonna tell you not to watch TVs and movies, but the TVs and the movies, they're amazing, but nothing like a novel. Now, I ain't write novels. You got a new one coming out, right? What's it called?
It's called A Unique Conversation with Knowledge.
Unique Conversation with Knowledge. That's thought-provoking, right? Just the title of that is thought-provoking. That stimulates thought, as opposed to watching a movie or a TV show. I watch movies and TV shows, but have you ever watched a TV or movie show that was based on a book and you was like, yo, that's whack?
Yeah.
Because it was nothing like what you imagined. You like, so you could be reading a book and they describe what a character looks like, and then you see somebody else's version, you're like, I thought, and so somebody's chubby and you thought they would have been something else, or they skinny and you thought, it's like everyone's imagination is different. That's why it's good to read novels. So the equivalent of what our ancestors did with novels was to study the myths. The myths have all types of fantastical beings doing all types of things that can have you question like, yo, is this real or that can't be real? And it blends the fantasy with reality and it keeps your mind stimulated. New thought causes new neural pathways. And then when it comes to rituals with the smells and the colors and the drums, and then you start experiencing things, and then when the Neteru or the Orisha presents itself, now that you studied the myths and you studied novels, now there's a whole possibility of phenomena that comes with that. You see, all our answers are within our tradition. So we deep study to stimulate the imagination. We read stories, myths, and novels to stimulate the imagination. And also, of course, you got the guided meditation. So what happens, we got the whole new yoga and meditation movement, and cats are just skipping levels, just trying to go to guided meditations and stuff when they skip the novel and the reading the novels and the deep study, so their mind still ain't really qualified. Some people can't even hold the thought. You're doing a guided meditation, they be like, I can't imagine none of that. You sit there and now imagine the white light at the top of your head. And I have somebody like, yo, I can't imagine that. And that's not their fault, or is it? So in order to get past limiting thought, you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable. Even being in relationships, you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable. Allow yourself to be punctured and possibly hurt. You need your limited thoughts punctured so it can leak out. Because sometimes our pathologies, we're guarding like it's our greatest treasure. Because it's been with us through so much stuff, and a lot of times you can't imagine yourself without your pathology. So you start finding ways to defend it. So part of getting past your limiting beliefs, you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable, and you have to allow yourself to be wrong about some things. New thought requires new neural pathways, which often brings discomfort. That's where it comes. So we have a mental blockage. We hate discomfort. Us as blacks in America, we had it so wrong or so bad that we just tired of it being bad. So we don't look forward to discomfort. So the idea of learning new things that's going to make us uncomfortable, be like, yeah, I got a whole lifestyle of discomfort, and you want me to sign up for some more? Like, yes. In new endeavors, it's hard to not look proficient. So our egos show up. You be like, Kev, do this drum beat. He gonna walk up there and start banging and sound like a child, like nobody wants to seem like the goofy dude. Or hold this posture. And then y'all start seeing all types of stuff, the hands down. Keep your hands up. Keep your hands up. Like, nobody wants to seem weak. So that's actually stopping you from learning. It's stopping your new neural pathway from forming. So in closing, your life is what you make it. Everybody knows that already, but we have to put it in context. Your quality of life. Y'all heard that every 7 years that your body totally regenerates itself on the cellular level, right? So that means in every several years, you're either gonna look like you age considerably, or there's no such thing as aging backwards. It's either, if you do the right thing, you're not gonna look your so-called age, you're gonna stay the same. So everybody else is gonna look like they're getting older, so they be like, damn, you aging backwards. You be like, no, I'm just not aging at the same rate. Y'all follow that? So what that is based on is the quality of your diet, the quality of what you're feeding yourselves, right? So the same thing happens with the thought. So the quality of your thought and the quality of energy, your energetic diet is going to determine how you grow and your ability to rebuild and regenerate and grow past your limiting thoughts and thinking. So watch what you feed yourself.
Yes.
Not just physically, but watch your mental diet, your spiritual diet. Because the things that's actually undoing us is the unconscious thing. Because we all on the surface be like, yo, I'm doing the right thing. Why am I yielding the right results is what's going on in the subconscious mind. So you could do your ritual and whatever, but what do you sit down? What type of music are you listening to? That goes to the subconscious mind. Because every time you're listening to the song, you're not always listening to the words. You be like, I already know the words, but what is the message of that music? After you get done from the ritual and listening to the music, then you sit down and watch TV. What are you watching on TV? Remember I said watch your circle. What's the quality of content of the conversation going on with the people that you're talking about? So now you see you got all these different, what about the news and the fear? So all of these things is going in, and these things that's going on the subconscious are more impactful than the things that you're doing on the surface. So all I'm saying is be careful, because what the mind focuses on, it becomes an exclusive state. Accepting responsibility and accountability for what you create is the essence of Maat. And Maat and maturity is what matters. So I end on that. So let's stand up. I thank everybody for their time. I thank everybody online for their time. So let us stand up. Hands to the 90 degrees. Let us say, when we go in peace and satisfaction. Brothers right over left, sisters left over right. Say Shemi Matep. Diyanu Uncle Jocelyn. Open up, give energy around the room. Retract your foot, bring it into the heart chakra. Absorb the energy, center the energy, ground on the count of 3. Stomp and ground with your right foot. Wa, Sanu, Shemet. All right.
Dua to everyone who are watching on Facebook and YouTube Live. We appreciate your time and your commitment to joining us on this Communion Sunday. In exchange for the energy that you've received today, we appreciate the donations that you share with us. You can send your donations via Cash App to $Temple of Anu or via PayPal to templeofanu@gmail.com. We will see you all again on Facebook and YouTube Live 2 weeks from today on Sunday, December 12th, and we look forward to that. In the meantime,